my name is Ethan with Standing Stone Kennels. This little puppy's name is Snap, and we're going to show you some of the beginning stages of training your new puppy. We recommend using clicker training. We've talked about that in a couple different videos, as well as our new puppy training basics video that's available on our website. But we don't actually show the charging the clicker process with a dog that's never actually done this before. So we have this little girl here to help us out. We've held her morning meal just a little bit longer, so she's going to be excited to work with us. And, well, as excited as she gets, she's a pretty low-key dog. And then we have another little puppy that we're going to work with that has a little different personality. He himself is a little more outgoing, so you'll have the opportunity to see maybe 2 different ways that a puppy could go through the charging the clicker process, and how that might better look with your dog at home. So to start off with, we're just going to feed her. Every time she eats, we're going to click to mark that. Let's get her attention over here. Come here. Good girl. Yeah. It's this simple. We click to mark that while she's eating the food. We don't need to necessarily rush this. We're not asking for anything other than for her to eat. Good. Now, I'm not going to encourage behaviors like her jumping up on me. Now, she's excited to get the food, but we're going to more or less ignore these behaviors, and then when she's not doing them, we'll feed her more. So it's using what would be considered a least reinforced scenario, or LRS, to help her to understand that this is what she's going to end up getting rewarded for, and jumping up on me is not something she's going to get rewarded for. Good. So this is what this first session should look like. We're just feeding her 1 or 2 kibbles at a time, clicking to mark every time she gets that food. This is charging the clicker. We're building a positive association with this noise. Again, she put a pause up on me, so we're just going to take a second. They're not up on me again, so we can continue to feed her. Good girl.
She's already exhibiting a lot of the behaviors that we look for when we start the clicker training process, which is typically teaching the puppy to sit. We're not even asking her to sit, but just seeing this behavior out of her already means when we move forward to teaching the puppies how to sit using a clicker, that she's going to move through that fairly quickly.
It is this simple. Feed your puppy, click every time they get that reward. This is building a positive association with the noise that the clicker makes. That's going to allow us to teach her things much, much faster down the road. The clicker takes a snapshot of exactly what the dog's doing at that moment and helps them to understand that that's what was right. A lot of people like to use yes, or good dog, or any combination of the above, and when you do that, there's the potential that you could use a slightly different inflection, or they could read into what the underlying tones of your voice that may be influenced by the mood that you're in from that day. Hi. Good. Again, rewarding her. And this is starting to develop all kinds of different behaviors. One of which, you can see she's not been jumping up on me anymore. Now, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen again, but she's understanding that that's not going to get her any extra attention. Good. As well as we can hold stuff for a second because she's, oh, careful there. Now we marked her sitting. We're developing behaviors. Anything that she's doing, we can mark and build off of. Now she's trying to figure out how she's going to get the reward. Jumping, jumping, jumping. We lost focus, which means that at this stage in the game, she wasn't getting rewarded often enough. We're going to be able to build this up later through repetition and more training sessions, but She tried a couple different things, jumping up, trying to get my attention, trying to get the treat, and it didn't work. So she said, meh, it's not working out for me. I'm just going to go ahead and wander off and do something that's a little more fun. So she needs reinforcement a little more often at this stage in the game.
It's also important to keep in mind when you're starting this clicker training process, especially if you're starting with a very young puppy, their focus is going to be pretty short. You're not going to get a 20, 30, 40-minute training session in. You'll be lucky to get focused for 5 minutes.
As we continue to charge this clicker, she's going to start to understand that the clicking noise itself is important. And we're going to run a little test here in a minute to see if she's starting to understand the noise itself that the clicker is making, meaning that something good is coming. And how we're going to do that is just allow her to wander off a little bit and just click the clicker once. And if we pull her focus back to us with just that noise, then we know that we have the clicker charged and we're ready to start teaching. Her meal is going to be about half of this cup. I filled the cup up all the way. I'm going to feed her approximately half of it for this training session, and then we're going to get out the next puppy and use the second half of the cup. Now, you can do a few repetitions, one kibble at a time, and then, as Kat was mentioning, we don't want to spend 20, 30, 40 minutes with this puppy because she doesn't have the attention span for that. So we can do things like a small handful of food. And then she gets to eat that. This is going to allow us to get through that half a cup a little faster, making sure that she isn't worn out at the end. Always marking when she's eating. Now, positive reinforcement, we've mentioned this lots of different times. Positive reinforcement doesn't always have to be treats or food. It's just something that works really well for most dogs because every dog needs to eat. This gives us a set time, 2 to 3 times a day with these young puppies that we can do a very short 5 to 10 minute training session, maybe 15 minutes. So we're going to try this, allow her to wander off a little bit, use the clicker to try and pull her focus back to us. That's just to see if she got distracted by the camera lady. If she's actually understanding the click noise is a good thing. We definitely have her focus at this point. Now, I don't know if you guys caught that or not, but that was a poorly timed click. I don't really even know why I clicked at that point. She was kind of jumping, and I wasn't feeding her, and I just clicked to... I have no idea. So stuff like that happens. It's not the end of the world. It's just a matter of making sure that you're not doing it all the time.
Even professionals make mistakes once in a while, right, hon?
Yes. Yes, we do. And we may not get the clicker fully charged in this first session. It may take a couple sessions depending on the dog. The most important part is to make sure that they do have an understanding before you start trying to really put an emphasis on training. Another thing that we can do is she's getting really good at eating food from me, is we can turn our hand into a target. She's getting good at coming right to our hand already, and we can start to mark that while we continue to charge the clicker. We're actually marking behaviors. So she comes over here to eat the food, and we mark that. This can turn into a really good way to recall our puppies down the road. But every time she sees my hand, she's excited to come eat. But as we progress in this process, we will move to variable reinforcement. That's going to be not getting the food reward or treat every single time she does something. Hi, hi, hi. Comes in, and we're marking her touching our hand and eating the food at the same time. So this is accomplishing 2 things at once. We're marking this target training as well as her eating food. Now, we have lost her focus here a couple times, so I think that we're about done with Snap's training session. She's starting to get more interested in other things, so I'm going to give her a couple jackpots because she doesn't have much food left. Jackpots would just be bigger rewards. She comes up to me and she's going to get that whole handful as opposed to just single kibbles. And we'll get about 2-3 more reps and have her session finished out here. Then
Maybe not even 2 or 3 reps.
Nope.
And that's something that you watch for with your puppy is when they start getting distracted, losing focus, that's definitely when we want to start.
Good girl. Good girl. So it's a big handful.
Finishing up our training session.
And this will be her last handful here. Good. And this is a really good first session. We've got her eating. This does a lot of different things. One, it builds a positive association with you as owner and trainer, which is why it's really good for the whole family to participate in this activity. But it accomplishes 2 things at once. We're getting that short training session in as well as getting her fed, 2 very important things in a young puppy's life. So we're going to switch her out now for the next puppy. All right. So this guy is a little bit more on the outgoing side. Yeah. And we're going to do the same thing with him. You see a little more naughtiness, a little more jumping. And at this stage in the game, a lot of people ask, how do we get our dogs not to jump on us? And one really good way to do that is
ignore it. And it ends.
Ignore it. Yes. He eventually gave up.
Because he wasn't getting any form of attention. He wasn't getting negatively reinforced or any physical positive attention either.
Yes, and then once he's doing something that's right, he's going to get rewarded for that. But we're going to start with his charging the clicker. Good. And this will actually be Rocket's second session. Little Rocket is his name. I did one with him last night, and we should be able to move into the development of new behaviors as opposed to just charging that clicker. Good. We're going to do a little refresher. It's always a good idea to do something that the dog knows to begin with, and right now this is eating food. This is really, really easy. You can already see that he has settled down a ton and is understanding that sitting and behaving is a really good way to get rewarded.
And keep in mind, we held their breakfast meal a little bit longer so that they were more excited about their food and treats, so that they're more willing to work at this point in time. So he might have been a little more exuberant for his training session because he's a little bit hungrier. But we also have a ton of focus right off the bat.
Good. So we're marking the sitting happening a lot. We haven't used the word, and at this point, he's getting rewarded while his butt's touching the ground. But at some point in time, he needs to understand that the act of sitting is ultimately what he needs to get rewarded for. So that will allow you to then transition to using the cue. Now, I'm going to point this out right here. He was kind of jumping on me. I was more or less ignoring him. He sat down, I instantly marked that and rewarded him. And he saw that that's what I'm going to get attention for, not the jumping on. And it's very much the same with children, as a lot more people would be experienced in, just in the fact that sometimes acting out is the form of attention that they think they need. So they're trying to get your attention in any way possible. They don't necessarily know how to do that. So jumping on you is one way that they try. Rocket. Good. Hey. So he's trying for the jumping again. He saw my hand up high. We're just going to wait a second. barking when he sat down. So he's going to figure out pretty quick that the sitting aspect of things and behaving is how he's going to get rewarded in attention, not the jumping on us.
This can carry over for counter surfing when you're in the kitchen with your dog. If your dog is constantly jumping up on the counters to see what you're doing or jumping up on you, especially when you're getting dinner ready.
Alright, attention.
Got a distraction outside. But we can also use that LRS scenario in the kitchen. So when you've got your dog jumping on the counters or jumping up on you, if you ignore that and then they do a behavior that we do want, which would be sitting or standing nicely or even laying down patiently in the kitchen, then they can get rewarded for that behavior.
So again, he's trying for the jumping.
So even though he's sitting, we weren't rewarding and marking that behavior because there was also barking involved.
Yeah, I held that for just a second until he quit barking.
Because even though it's kind of cute, we don't really want to encourage and reward the barking behavior because it can become a very annoying game if your puppy barks and barks and barks constantly and they think that that's the way that they're going to get attention and rewarded.
You have to ask yourself one question when you got a new little puppy. Is this something that I'm going to be okay with when my dog is full grown, 50, 60 pounds? If the answer to that is yes, then it's okay for them to do it now. The answer to that is no. We're not going to want him barking at everything when he's an adult dog. So we're not going to reward that or allow that at this point in time. Good boy. And it's okay to talk to them and be encouraging, but we want the clicker itself to be the key to marking behaviors and developing what we're looking for out of our little puppies. Good boy.
So what Ethan did there was got him to move his feet a little bit and exhibit the behavior of sitting again because he was just sitting and getting rewarded for a while there. And we want him to understand that we're going to want the behavior of sitting, the actual standing up to sitting down behavior, to be the behavior we'll be looking for. That behavior right there. Good job.
Come on, come on, come on. In these early stages in the game, it's a good idea to work on one trick or one behavior at a time. We don't want to start asking him to lay down or try and get him to come to us and sit and do all of these different things. This is his only second session of working on these obedience things, so we want to try and keep that to working on one thing. It's going to make it a lot easier for him to understand how to get rewarded. Good.
Those cowboy boots are distracting.
Rocket. Hi, hi, hi.
Go's got to go explore around the corner.
Hi. Rocket. Checking stuff out.
And again, just like Snap started to lose a little bit of focus, we're starting to see a little loss of focus with Rocket, and that can sometimes be an indication. Gotta say hi to me? Yeah. That can sometimes be an indication that the session should finish fairly quickly so that we can end the session on a positive note with his focus.
Good. Yeah, we'll do a few more reps here and then we'll call that good. And I will give him one more big jackpot, basically. Good. I think we can do it in about 3 more reps and we'll call that good for him. We started again with a single kibble at a time, and then we're going to move through to a couple big handfuls to finish this out.
Barbara said we need better treats. Yes, and you can definitely find treats that your dog or puppy is a lot more interested in working for, but because we held his meal until his training session, he's definitely willing to work because he's hungry. And yes, we are only using his kibble as his reward and his treats. But we also could pull out soft treats, things like that. Something to keep in mind, though, when you are doing your clicker training sessions and charging the clicker, we want something that the puppy's going to be able to eat fairly quickly. So don't get real big milk bones that are going to take him, you know, almost 3 minutes to eat in general. We want him to be able to eat fairly quickly his treat so that he doesn't lose focus and that we can continue the training session.
I have a few more than 3 big handfuls left, but we're able to keep his focus right now. I'm going to try one more, and then we're going to call quits. Good. You can see that little hand gesture too helps draw his attention up high, and then naturally his butt's going to try and move toward the ground. Makes it a little easier for them to naturally move into that sitting position. And in case anyone wants to ask or has asked already, yes, we teach our pointing dogs to sit. As long as they understand the difference between sit and whoa and you don't confuse it in training, it's very easy for the dogs to understand both. As well as when we use our dogs for versatility, both dove hunting, duck hunting, upland hunting, they have to, or it's definitely easier for them to be able to sit by me on a stool while we're dove hunting and then whoa in the field on birds. Knowing the difference between the two is the most important part of that. And I think we're definitely done with these sessions with the 2 little puppies. Keeping it short and simple is the best way to do it. We will probably be doing more videos demonstrating his progress and her progress as we go. Stay tuned for more.
Thanks, guys.